When most people think of Easter, you might think of the resurrection of Christ, celebrations of springtime, or just simply some marked up commercialized eggs. Yet beneath the surface of this springtime holiday lies a far older and more shadowy tapestry of traditions. Before it became a celebration of Christ's resurrection, Easter was woven into a world of firelit rituals, judgmental hares, and mysterious pagan deities. From the eerie glow of Easter fires meant to drive back winter's darkness, to the spectral journey of Blåkulla, a fabled island where witches gathered under the devil's watchful eye, Easter's origins are steeped in superstition and folklore. According to a medieval tradition, primarily known from a single reference by the 8th century monk Bede in his work The Reckoning of Time, the Anglo-Saxon month of Eostre, April, was named after a goddess called Eostre, in whose honour feasts were once held. Bede writes that by this time, these pagan celebrations had vanished, replaced by the Christian observance of Easter. Yet the mention lingered, brief, unexplained, and never repeated. Bede's account is the only direct historical reference to Eostre, and the silence that surrounds her has haunted scholars for centuries. Was she truly worshipped, or merely a name conjured to fill a gap in knowledge? Some have even questioned whether Bede invented her entirely, but in 1958, a chilling echo surfaced. Over 150 votive inscriptions were discovered in the Rhineland, Germany, dating back to the 2nd century AD. These invoked goddesses with names eerily similar to Eostre hinted at a broader, older Germanic tradition, now buried further in the distant past. In the 19th century, Jacob Grimm resurrected Eostre's name in his Deutsche Mythology, suggesting that she had once been a powerful dawn goddess, known in Old High German as Ostara. He connected her to Indo-European deities of light and rebirth, like the Greek Eos and Roman Aurora. But even in this radiant company, Eostre seemed different, stranger. Grimm speculated about ancient spring rites dedicated to her, bonfires lit to call back the warmth, people dancing through fields soaked in morning dew, eggs and hares offered as symbols of fertility. Grimm noted that women dressed in pure white to mimic the goddess, and that water drawn on Easter morning was believed to be holy and healing, as if touched by the goddess herself. Easter fires, known as Paschal fires, are bonfires traditionally lit during Easter as part of both liturgical and cultural observances. While the practice isn't documented prior to the 16th century, it is widely believed to have roots in pre-Christian Saxon traditions that continue to this day. Several interpretations exist regarding their original meaning. The Saxons may have viewed Easter as the time when spring triumphs over winter, with the fires symbolically driving away darkness and cold. They also served as symbols of fertility. Ashes from the fires were sometimes scattered across the fields to help fertilize the soil. Another possible inspiration for Easter fires comes from the story of St. Patrick, who is said to have lit a fire on the eve of Easter in 432 AD in defiance of the pagan High King of Ireland. This act became a powerful Christian symbol, representing the enduring light of Christ against opposition, and marked the beginning of Ireland's conversion to Christianity. In this, the fire is seen as a reminder of Christ's eternal kingship. In northern Germany, the tradition lives on in the form of Osterfeuer, fires which are lit at sunset on Holy Saturday. A similar tradition, though not necessarily tied to Easter, existed in Germany long before, that spanned back as far as the 8th century. Walpurgis Night, also known as Saint Walpurga's Eve, is celebrated on the night of April 30th and the day of May 1st. The name comes from Saint Walpurga, an 8th century abbess from Francia. The Christian feast commemorates her canonization, which took place on May 1st, 870. Saint Walpurga was venerated in Germany for protecting people from disease and witchcraft. Christians prayed through her intercession for healing and spiritual protection, especially as she played a key role in converting local populations to Christianity. Bonfires lit on the eve of her feast were believed to ward off witches and evil spirits, a tradition still followed in parts of Europe. Since Saint Walpurga was believed to offer protection against witchcraft, medieval and Renaissance traditions held that Walpurgis Night was a time when witches gathered for a Sabbath, and dark forces were at their peak. In German folklore, it was thought that witches convened on the Brocken, the tallest mountain in the Hares range of central Germany. Here it was believed that these witches would cast magic spells, conjure curses and hexes, and even meet with the devil himself. To guard against these malevolent powers and protect their animals, people were believed to light fires on the hillsides as a form of defense. In Sweden, a tradition exists to this day where children dress up as witches and go door to door in the hopes of receiving sweets. It's pretty much just Halloween, except in Sweden, it's more of an Easter tradition. This might come across as a bit random at first, but it actually has a darker history. You see, the act of dressing up as witches is to commemorate the supposed travel that witches would take to the land of Blåkulla. Blåkulla, translated as Blue Hill, was a legendary island in Swedish folklore, believed to be the site where the devil held his earthly court with witches. It was described as a vast, seemingly endless meadow, with a large house where the devil resided. Accounts of Blåkulla include vivid descriptions of the devil's appearance. He was said to wear a grey coat, red and blue stockings, a red beard, and a tall hat wrapped with multicoloured linen, along with long garters tied around his stockings. Blåkulla features prominently in the witch hunts detailed in Joseph Glanvill's 1682 book Sedissimus Triumphatus, which includes an appendix on the Mora witch trials titled True Account of What Happened in the Kingdom of Sweden in the years 1669, 1670 and upwards. The text documents trials and executions ordered by the Swedish crown during a period of intense witch persecution. The origin of the Blåkulla legend is tied to the real island of Blåjungfrun, which in earlier times was also called Blåkulla. As early as the medieval period, it was rumoured to be a gathering place for witches. While Blåkulla was first mentioned in a witch trial in 1597, it wasn't until the Swedish witch hysteria of 1668 to 1676 that it became a central element in the narrative of witchcraft and persecution. Blåkulla was said to be accessible only through magical flight. Witches and the abducted children would travel there by riding on fence posts, spits, animals such as horses or goats, or even the bodies of sleeping men. Children were often lured into making the journey by being offered clothing, typically a shirt, coat, and doublet in red or blue, and asked if they wanted to attend a distant feast. If they refused, they were taken by force anyway. According to the account in Sedissimus Triumphatus, Blåkulla was described as a vast and beautiful meadow that stretched endlessly in all directions. At the centre stood a house with a vividly painted gate, leading into a smaller meadow where the animals used for travel were kept. Men whose bodies had been used as mounts during the journey remained inside the house, standing upright in a dazed sleep against the walls. The night's events began with each witch pricking a finger to sign the devil's book in blood, followed by a mock baptism, during which they pledged their souls to him. Inside a grand hall within the house was a long table where the witches would gather. The devil's favourite witches were seated nearest to him at the head of the table, while the children stood near the entrance. Some children claimed to have seen a white angel by the door, reminding them to follow God's commandments, and occasionally attempting to prevent them from entering. After dining, the group would dance, though this would often give way to cursing, quarrels, and crude behaviour. Certain areas of the house and fields were reserved for more specific, often darker rituals. The devil would sometimes play the harp for them before selecting his favoured companions and taking them into a private chamber where he engaged in sexual acts. Many were said to have admitted to this, claiming that the devil had fathered children with them. When the devil was in a playful mood, he would let the witches ride on spits in front of him. Afterward, he would beat them black and blue with the same spits, then laugh at their suffering. He would tell them that the day of judgment was near and assign them to build a great stone house where he promised they would be safe from God's wrath and enjoy endless pleasures. However, as they worked, the walls would often collapse, injuring some of the witches. The devil found this amusing, but would immediately heal them. Witnesses also described seeing a massive dragon, surrounded by fire and bound in iron chains. The devil who spoke with them warned that if they confessed anything, he would release this chained beast, bringing destruction upon all of Sweden. The Easter Bunny, also known as the Easter Rabbit or Easter Hare, is a folkloric figure associated with Easter, typically portrayed as a rabbit that delivers decorated eggs. Often imagined wearing clothes and carrying a basket, this character has become a beloved part of modern spring celebrations. But the origins of the Easter Hare stretch back to German Lutheran traditions, where it held a somewhat more serious role. Long before it became a cheerful bringer of chocolate and toys, the Easter Hare was seen similar to Santa Claus, with his famous list. The Easter Hare was said to visit children at the start of Eastertide not to simply deliver treats, but to observe and assess first. Acting as kind of a seasonal judge, the hare would only offer gifts to the obedient and the well-mannered, whilst those who strayed into disobedience received nothing. This aspect of judgment gave the Easter Hare a more imposing presence than its modern, playful counterpart. It sounds like more of an authority figure, wandering the edges of gardens and peering into homes, not just to hide eggs, but to weigh the merits of each young soul. Over time, the Easter Hare's stern reputation softened, evolving into the cheerful Easter Bunny we know today. Yet traces of its older role remain, particularly in the way the bunny is still associated with bringing rewards to children. In an 1874 publication, German philologist Adolf Holtzmann remarked that the Easter hare was the sacred animal of a star. This idea built upon the earlier suggestion by Jacob Grimm, who proposed a connection between the Easter celebration and the Germanic goddess Osterhase. However, modern scholarship has questioned these claims. Although many contemporary writers assert a sacred connection between hares and the Anglo-Saxon goddess Eostre, there isn't much in the way of evidence for this. In fact, Bede, the only known historical source to mention Eostre by name, makes no reference to her being associated with any animal. One popular legend attempts to explain the Easter Bunny's origin by telling of a bird frozen to a tree branch in winter, which Eostre saved by transforming into a hare. Grateful for its rescue and retaining the ability to lay eggs, the hare would then offer these eggs as gifts to the goddess. As always guys, if you've enjoyed today's episode, then don't forget to leave this video a like, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications for more content just like this. Until next time.